My name is Jason Schuster. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I own Intricate Art Spine and Body Solutions. It's a continuing education company teaching other doctors how to do a couple things. Before that, I was a fly fishing guide in between Patagonia, Chile, and southwestern Alaska for a decade. This is a clip from our online Intricate Art Nutrition Certification, IANC. This is a great group of online courses. It's 5 courses. They're 5 CEUs each, 25 total CEUs. All the courses are about nutrition, supplementation, peptide therapy, vitamin deficiencies, all the stuff that no doctors get in medical school. This is a good picture, you guys, of epigenetic modifications. You got the chromosome, it's unspooling into the chromatin, and then you can see the nucleosomes, the little balls there, the red balls, and then the ME, that would be like methyl tag, or the AC would be acetyl tags. The histones themselves can get acetylated and modified. The DNA itself can be methylated and modified. Both can be modified. Neither can be modified, or a combination between the two can be modified. That is how the different base pairs A, T, C, G. Those are the nucleotide base pairs in DNA, A with T, C with G, right? And you can see down on the bottom left, you got C, G, G, C. That's how they're paired together, and then it depends on how they're tagged on whether they're gonna be expressed or if they're gonna be expressed. Very, very complicated process that we're just barely starting to maybe understand a little bit, but we're at like a kindergarten level at understanding this stuff, you guys, which is exciting because there's tons and tons of room for improvement. Epigenetic mechanisms. I like this picture just because it has a few different things in it, you guys. So this talks about some more environmental factors. So epigenetic mechanisms are affected by factors and processes. There's a bunch of them, but some of them that are listed on this slide here: diet, aging, pharmaceuticals, environmental chemicals, development. I'll throw a couple in there. Stress, your parental situation, what type of childhood you had. All of these things affect your epigenetics. If you go through a very, very stressful childhood and your epigenetics get altered when you're a child, that is going to affect your mental health for the rest of your life, unless you can change your epigenome, which will help to change your mental health. And this is why physical and mental health need to be worked together, because you can't optimally do one without the other. Just changing your nutrition and supplementation will change your mental health, and just changing your mental health can change the amount of nutrients and elements and vitamins that you have in different locations in your body. If you do both together, they work synergistically with each other, and it really, really leads to good stuff. Health endpoints of epigenetic dysfunction: cancer, autoimmune disease, mental disorders, diabetes, all sorts of problems, idiopathic diseases. The DNA methylation itself, which is what's most commonly talked about, DNA itself, methyl groups can tag the DNA in certain receptor areas, which affects the way that the genes are read and what genes are expressed and read. Very, very interesting. So gene alleles, you guys, I've mentioned this a couple of times. Most people taking this have probably seen this at some point in their past, but probably not recently. So let's go over it, because this is like one of the base concepts that's important. For every gene, you have 2 of the same, or you can have 2 of the same alleles. So just think about there's 2 halves to every gene, mother and father half. If you look at the box on the bottom, you can have dominant alleles, recessive alleles. This may be ringing some bells for people. If we're talking about blue eyes, and you need, I don't know if this is true or not, but let's just say you need to have 2 recessive A alleles, or alleles of that gene, for blue eyes. The only way you're going to get blue eyes is if you have small a, small a. If you have big A, small a, you're going to be whatever the big A is coding for. That could be brown. If you have big A, you don't have the small a at all, you can't have blue eyes. If it's a heterozygous or homozygous recessive, it's going to be more rare than if it was heterozygous, dominant, or recessive. There's different combinations of stuff. If you need both recessive or both dominant, it's going to be more rare typically than if you have heterozygous. And again, it just depends on the number of genes that are coming in to affect the same type of trait. So that changes the statistics behind it. But just to keep it really simple, you have one half of a gene from your mom, one half of a gene from your dad. Those can be the same, which would be the same allele. So that is an allele. Your mother's side gene and your father's side gene, you just want to think about those are alleles of the same gene. The genes can be expressed slightly different. And again, a lot of this has to do with what type of things your mother and your father were doing throughout their own life before they gave birth to you. If you had two parents that were in really, really good physical condition, that always exercised, that had good mental health, you are far, far more likely to experience all of those things with less effort in your life than, say, if you grew up in a family like I did, where they're fighting all the time and yelling at each other and emotionally abusive and all this stuff. That is going to negatively affect your epigenome. This stuff is changeable, but the physical effects of the epigenome will change mental health. And mental health can change the physical effects on the epigenome. So this stuff is intricately interconnected. This is why it's so fascinating, and one of the reasons why it's so complicated. Here's another, I like this picture because it shows the chromosome. Different genes are matched up in the chromosome, and then on either side is going to be different alleles. So you have allele 1 and allele 2, and then those are going to combine, and that's how the phenotype is going to be expressed. And again, those can be changed. So on the definition of this, what I crossed out here, you guys, 4 traits. An allele is a variant of a gene for a trait. As far as I understand, there are there's basically no singular genes that cause traits. Trisomy 21 would be a good example of this, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee specific traits. It guarantees problems, and the traits are typically relatively similar, but it doesn't 100% guarantee that everybody's going to come out the same way. So I crossed out for a trait. An allele is a variant of a gene. There are thousands of genes that interact, hundreds of thousands of things that interact to express a gene a certain way. So that doesn't, I don't like having the word trait in there, because one gene almost never leads to one trait. It's how that gene is expressed in relation to all the other 20,000 protein coding genes and the hundreds of other thousand genes that we have. Remember, we only know 10% of our DNA. So if it's true that we have 20,000 protein coding genes, that's only 10%. We have 200,000 other genes that we don't know what they do. But they do have obviously some major role that they play. We just haven't been able to figure it out. Maybe we don't have the proper technology. Maybe those non-protein coding genes are working in a different realm of science that we don't understand yet. It could be like a vibrational thing. It could be, I mean, who knows? You could go as crazy as saying those genes are affecting a different dimension of reality, like the 5th dimension or something like that. There are some people that think things like this, and there is some scientific evidence for that. Same thing like with dark matter and dark energy. Maybe there's a similarity here, you guys. So dark matter and dark energy is a little tiny bit better understood, maybe. Dark matter is apparently like 95% of the universe is made of dark matter. And we have no idea where it is. We've never seen it. We don't know what it does. And some people's thought is that 95% of dark matter is in a different dimension of the universe that we can't actively see. It's pretty crazy to think about. That's alleles. Just so everybody gets a good, clear understanding of what we're talking about here. Here's a good one with DNA structure, properties, types, and functions. So you have A and T and C and G are the nucleotide base pairs. You have a sugar phosphate backbone, and then you have the adenine, guanine, so A and T, or adenine and thymine, A and T, and then guanine and cytosine, C and G. And then when it goes into the RNA, the letters change slightly. That's the way it is, and this is another good picture. It zooms in to kind of show you the base pairs and the DNA. And remember, the DNA in the chromosome is wrapping around 8 histones, which make up a nucleosome, and the DNA wraps around the nucleosome to fit itself inside the nucleus of the cell. Methylation. Human beings are the most complex systems in the universe as far as we know. There's an insane amount of stuff that is happening all the time at a ton of different levels that all depends on itself, on the other things functioning properly for them to function properly themselves. So Methylation is a very, very important one because a lot of vitamins need to be methylated. It's the way that people end up with unmetabolized folic acid syndrome is through a problem with methylation. So let's go through this a little bit more specifically. So methylation, again, is adding a methyl group or a CH3 group to a molecule or to the DNA, and demethylation is removing a CH3 group. This has a profound effect on DNA health, RNA health, protein health, and overall health. Again, I think if we could somehow objectively quantify all the medical knowledge that's available out there in the ether, I would guarantee you we know less than 5%. We just know so little about this. And I think the more you learn about this stuff, the more you understand how little we actually know. Like, it does seem like we know a lot in medicine. We really don't know anything, you guys. We know so little, which again, if you just look at it from the proper frame of reference, we don't know a lot of this stuff. There's a ton of area for improvement, and the stuff that we do know can be used to much higher. The stuff that we do know now, it can be used to help people's health so much more than it is, because most of this, basically all of this stuff that I'm telling you guys, no other doctors are going to know anything about this stuff. And if you don't know anything about this stuff, you're not going to be able to help people with it. Like I mentioned before, in 2024, I teach newly graduated medical doctors, osteopaths, doctors of physical therapy, chiropractors, athletic trainers all the time. Less than 5% of them know anything about this, and it's not because they learned it in school, it's because they've learned it someplace else. During methylation, there's a universal methyl donor, you guys, which is called SAMe, or if you just want to say it SAMe, I say SAMe for whatever reason. So the universal methyl donor that humans have is S-adenosylmethionine. SAMe readily donates a methyl group to other substances which can alter their form. I kind of think of SAMe as like the mitochondria for ATP. SAMe, not so much that they're producing a methyl group, but they contain a methyl group that they can give to other people. SAMe is a methyl donor. It's very, very important, because if you don't have enough methyl groups available to be donated to vitamins, if you're not taking methylated multivitamins, which is something we talk about in the nutrition and supplementation course, it's super duper important, you guys. So watch both part 1 and part 2 of the nutrition and supplementation course, and the peptides course, and the intro course, because none of these courses are going to provide you with the proper amount of knowledge on their own. But if you take all of these courses together, all of them link to each other, and you will have the foundational understanding of how to go about helping your patients better and more, and yourself with this stuff. The system that produces SAMe is reliant on the presence of something called 5-MTHF, you guys. So 5-MTHF is 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. Folic acid is the artificial generic substitute for 5-MTHF. One way to think about it, I guess, would be think about like folic acid is like aspartame to sugar, but that's not really a good example, because folic acid is worse for you than sugar. And there's some debate, I guess, on this, if aspartame is worse for you than sugar or not. Neither one of them are good for you. But 5-MTHF or 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, that's the bioactive or bioavailable form. If a human being eats folic acid, what needs to happen is the folic acid needs to get converted or broken down by multiple numerous steps to end up being converted into 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. And 30 to 60% of humans in the United States have a gene mutation of 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase, which is the enzyme that needs to be used to acquire the 5-MTHF. If you have a 5-MTHFR gene anomaly, your body cannot efficiently or cannot at all break down folic acid into 5-MTHF. So if you are if you're half of the United States population, it is impossible for you to get proper amounts of 5-MTHF from eating folic acid, because your body can't break down folic acid. It's like putting water into your car gas tank every time you fill it up. For human beings folic acid is like putting half a cup of water into your gas tank each time you fill it up. It may not do anything right away, but at a certain point it's going to clog it up because your car engine is not meant to use water. It's meant to use gas. And that is the same exact thing that we're doing to the human body by putting folic acid into the body. Now, even if you're not in 50% of the US population can't process folic acid. The other 50% can't process it well because folic acid is not a natural substance found anywhere on planet Earth, and there's only a couple countries in the world that allow folic acid to be put into food, and the United States is one of them. I'll tell you guys a quick story about folic acid. So when I moved to South America, I've always had a problem eating bread in the United States, and I never knew why. Until I moved to South America when I was 20, and I lived down there for a decade. They don't, at least where I was at, way down south in Patagonia, they don't poison their food with all this crap that we do in the United States to make the pharmaceutical companies and the big ag companies and the food companies money. The only reason that folic acid is put into food is because of money. Who cares if it's bad for people? That's the obvious line of thought that the government is using, because most countries don't allow folic acid in their food because they know it's bad for you. And it's not a natural substance. It's not good for you. We know what the natural substance is, which is 5-MTHF. Why isn't that put into the food? Because it's more expensive. If 5-MTHF, 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, was put into the food, as far as I understand, every single human being can use that because that's the active form of folate. If we put 5-MTHF in the food, that would make everybody healthier, as far as I understand. Folic acid makes nobody healthier. Folic acid is not healthy for people, especially if you can't break it down. It's causing you more problems, and we're going to talk about those problems in a second. So unless you're taking methylated vitamins, which we talk about in the nutrition and supplementation class, you may not be able to methylate certain vitamins in your body based off of certain epigenetic markers that you have going on. And these things are knowable. We can know this stuff nowadays, you guys. And that's the frustrating thing and exciting thing, is that if we have the ability and we can know it, it's just that no regular people are told that we do have the ability to know this stuff, because most doctors don't know about this stuff either. There's 7 vitamins that are necessary for regular methylation to happen. We're going to go over those in a second. Vitamin B9 is one. So if you're not eating natural stuff and most stuff that we eat, you guys, don't have methylated vitamins. Some things do, but they need to be converted. So if you take methylated vitamins, they're immediately usable without requiring a ton of excess energy. 30 to 60% of the population has a gene anomaly with the MTHFR gene, or the methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase gene, that really inhibits the already inhibited process of breaking down folic acid. So 0 human beings break down folic acid well, because it's not a natural substance, and humans have only been exposed to folic acid for like 50 out of the hundreds of thousands of years that we've been on the planet, because it was just put into food not that long ago, and not in very many countries. Go figure. The US, the most wealthy country in the world, has like the 67th best health. It's something like that. It's absolutely pathetic. So if you don't have enough SAMe to donate adequate methyl groups, if you don't have enough amino acids, if you don't have enough vitamins and minerals, we can't process most stuff that we put into our body properly, including vitamins and minerals and folic acid. So here's the 7 essential nutrients to facilitate optimal, energy efficient methylation. So here's vitamin D and magnesium are here again. So thanks for watching, you guys. We're going to have more clips from our different nutrition courses coming out. Keep an eye out for part 2 and for other parts of our other nutrition courses, dry needling courses, and other good educational information. Check out our website at intricateartseminars.com, and for big discounts on all of our online and in-person courses, along with a community chat room, weekly Zoom calls, check out our school community, skool.com/CEU, school.com/CEU. Thanks, guys.